Hello, and welcome back to another episode of It's Okay, Baby Girl. Hope you guys are all well, staying warm in this winter time. It is currently snowing outside, and it's crazy to see because in Texas it's a very rare occurrence, but it's cool. It's refreshing to see a little different weather from the normal crappy dry heat. So, hope you guys are doing well. We're back for another episode this week, and when I was thinking about what to talk about, something came to mind while I was at work. I was just thinking about all the experiences we have in life, the good ones, the bad ones, and I've seen a lot of people, including myself, I've been there, regret a lot of things. But I feel like that's not the right mindset. It's not helpful in the long run because there's more to your experiences than just doing the right thing or doing what you think you're supposed to be doing. There's more to it than that. Even the bad experiences have meaning. Even the bad experiences lead you somewhere better. So that's what we're going to talk about this week, is regretting our past and how we should reframe our thoughts. So with that being said, let's get into it.
Qu'est-ce que je vais te nommer? Je vais te nommer l'amour, l'amour tendre, l'amour qui chante doucement dans mon cœur, l'amour sans logique à la raison.
A lot of us go through life, trying to do our very best, and yet we still come out of some hard times, and we've all had bad experiences or things that we've done that we look back on and we probably wouldn't do again. But I think it's still important, though, that you should never have regret for anything, because ultimately, no matter what path you take, it leads you to where you are right now. And obviously, certain things, certain behaviors, obviously, we probably should not continue. If you felt bad about something you did in the past because you knew it wasn't what you're supposed to be doing or something that you're not aligned with truly, obviously don't do it again. But what I'm trying to talk about is some things that might not be necessarily within our control, or obviously things that we get ourselves into not knowing the outcome. You should never regret those things, For example, it could be like having to transfer schools because you failed. That was me. Or going through a breakup. Or having to find new friends because your old ones kind of, are not it anymore. And you realize that you're not quite aligned with them. We've all gone through some sort of experience where life changes, and then you look back on the choices you made, and I'm like, damn, I just wish I didn't even have to do that in the first place, because look at where I ended up, or look at how it ended, right? That's one way to look at it, but I don't think that helps you move on or appreciate where you end up going from there, Yes, we have those experiences, and they can be painful to transition out of. But I want you to think of it this way. Every experience you have in life is either a blessing or a lesson. And if you look at it that way, you will be much more appreciative of every moment, even the ones that don't turn out the way that you want them to. Because ultimately there is something greater beyond that is aligned with you more than what you're trying to chase after. One of my examples in my personal life, I've also talked about this in a previous episode, is having to transfer schools. I literally failed. Okay. Oops. I said the F word. Failed out of a nursing program in Ohio. Yeah. And I'm not ashamed to talk about it because I am a registered nurse today. So I made it. Just wasn't my time or my place to be there in that program. And that's how I look at it now. But at the time when I failed and I had to apply to a new school and move back in with my parents, I regretted everything. I regretted moving in the first place. I regretted picking nursing at one point. I regretted, the people I hung out with and the lifestyle I was living. I regretted everything. And that did not help me in the long run because it just reiterated the fact that I am a failure to myself. Rather than seeing, okay, what was the lesson here? The lesson was I did not quite know myself as much as I thought I did. The lesson was certain environments are not conducive for my learning. Certain programs, certain curriculums are not great for how I need to learn and study and understand concepts. The environment I was in was not ideal for my personal growth. And the fact that I left Ohio and transfer back to Dallas and live with my parents. It was a painful transition, but it was exactly what I needed. And I didn't see it until later on, because now I look at my life and I am actually a nurse. If I had stayed in Ohio and picked a different topic or a different major, I would not be a nurse today. I would not be working where I work today and changing lives in the way that I'm called to. Because I moved back to Dallas, I reconnected with my family, got closer to my cousins. I got closer to people I grew up with from elementary, middle school, high school. I would not be with the man I am with today if I didn't move back. There are so many things in my life that would not be a reality today if I had stayed in Ohio. And I cannot emphasize this enough, that I am so grateful for where I am today. And even though I did not understand it at the time, you look back on it now and you realize that there was something else waiting for me, you know? So if you're in that boat right now, let's say something is happening in your life, something's changing and you're not necessarily in control of that change, just see what happens. Just give it some time, because you might not realize it now, but there's probably something in the works. And you won't understand it right now, but when it happens or after it happens, you will realize, oh my gosh, that's why I needed to come down here or make this change, leave this relationship, leave this school, leave this job, leave this friend group. There's so many different transitions in life that we go through. But just because things don't end the way that you thought it would does not mean that it wasn't supposed to happen. It was supposed to happen to get you where you are today. And where you are today is where you're meant to be, okay? Might not make sense now, but give it some time. You will see. Looking back on it, you will understand. You'll have that moment where you realize how everything played out in your favor. And it's a lot of it has to do with just your mindset. Just the way you think about your circumstance or your environment influences how you perceive it. If you think it's all going to shit, you will only see that. If you think that there's something that you can get out of this, you will see more positive outcomes. You will see the little things, the blessings in your life. There are things in life that you might not realize right now are a blessing, but they truly are. Getting dumped is one of them. Being broken up with can be like one of the most painful experiences ever. But when you see who comes along next, or see how your life changes for the better after that person removes himself from your life, you will realize that that was a blessing in disguise. Or the lessons you learn from a hard relationship. Maybe it was a really difficult relationship, but you probably learned a lot and developed as a person because of the person that you were in relationship with. So it's not all going to shit, and you are going to be fine. And just because it doesn't make sense right now doesn't mean it won't ever make sense. It just doesn't need to make sense right now. But one day you will be handed the answer and you will understand when the time is right. So if you are going through this experience of maybe you're reflecting a lot on your past and you're feeling a lot of shame or guilt or regret, think about why. Obviously, if you did something real shitty and you need to, move on from that experience and whatever choice you made, whether you're hurting yourself, hurting somebody else, you should obviously reflect on that, see what lesson you can learn from it, rather than beating yourself up and telling yourself you're a horrible person, or all I do is make bad choices and I can never do anything right. That's not a good way to talk to yourself. Don't say that. Think of, okay, I made these choices, I made these mistakes. How can I learn from this and be better? And then next, what are the blessings that came out of these situations that I didn't see at the time? Think about the life that you're living now and see what would have been different if you had stayed in whatever situation had changed. There is either a blessing or a lesson in every experience you go through. Sometimes there's both. Sometimes it is both a blessing and a lesson. If anything, I think every lesson is a blessing because it just improves, your maturity and your understanding of life and yourself. And it just leads you in the direction that you need to go. So ultimately, I think every experience is a blessing. And sometimes there is always a lesson in there too. But it's what you make of it. You know, you can look at life and think, oh my God, everything sucks and it's all falling apart and it's never going to get better. That's just because you don't have a lot of control over what's happening right now. But one day you will. Again, when you learn those lessons, you prevent it from happening again. You break the cycle. And then eventually you will have a better understanding of how life works and the role you play in it in every situation. And you will make sure that your behavior aligns with the outcomes that you want. But that's part of life. That's part of growing up, especially if you are listening to this late high school, early college. This is like a huge time of change. And you're going to feel like that a lot. You're going to be looking back on decisions you've made or thinking about, scenarios, situations that you've been in. And life is going to change a lot. And there's going to be a lot of heartbreak. But that stuff is so transformative. So don't ever regret it, because it is meant to be. It is meant to be part of your life, part of your journey. And it is ultimately going to lead you where you got to go. Obviously, be prudent, be wise, think through your decisions and see how you can be better every day. But do not regret the moments that have already passed. They already happened. You can't do anything about it, but you can do something about your future. If you don't like how something went, don't repeat it. See what you learned from that experience and move on. Be better. But don't beat yourself up for something that already happened. It's not going to ever change that. Okay? So let's work on that. This year, I'm also working through that, but let's work on not regretting experiences, but rather seeing what we can take from them. Another thing that I realized is that sometimes we go through shit just because one day we're going to need to be there for someone who's going through what we've been through. And our pain can be used in comforting someone else. Our experience, the lesson we learned from that moment, can be used to help somebody else. So don't question why you go through something, because sometimes it's simply because there is somebody out there one day that's going to meet you, that's going to need your wisdom, that's going to need your level of understanding, your empathy, because you've been there, you've been in their shoes. And that's such a beautiful part of our human experience, is being able to empathize with others. I realize so much of my struggle and my journey with mental health has led me to becoming a psych nurse. I mean, it's what you make of it. I would not be a good psych nurse if it hadn't been for the shit that I've gone through in my life. Because when my patients are going through it, I know how they're feeling, because I've felt the same way in the past. Or I still struggle with some things, So I'm able to use my experience to better educate them, to kind of lead them, guide them, comfort them. And that is a very unique thing that I can offer as someone who's already been through it. I'm sure you can see that in other parts of the nursing world. If you're a parent and you are a pediatric nurse, you see a parent who is also scared for their child, you know what that feels like, because you're also a parent. Maybe you've had a sick child as well and you've been in their shoes. So don't regret your experiences, because they will have meaning one day. Just give it some time. It will make sense. And you'll have those moments, those oh shit moments, when you realize why everything happened. Everything kind of falls into place. And you can see the full picture. But in those moments of distress and struggle, it doesn't always make sense. And it's okay to feel freaked out and anxious and stressed out about it, or feeling bad about it. That's okay. That's perfectly normal. But don't dwell in that space. Pick yourself up and realize that there's more out there than just that moment. Remember, this too shall pass. Or it already passed. So what are you going to do about it? Just make a better future. But there is always something that you can get out of every moment. So I hope this helps, guys. I know that, we've all had these experiences, but I firmly believe that there is meaning in everything. So yeah. If this episode helped you, please feel free to share with somebody else who might benefit from this. Let's keep passing it on. Just spread the positivity, spread the vibes, And if you want to continue following along with the podcast, don't forget to, subscribe on Spotify, and I will leave a link to our Instagram account in the show notes below. It's SOK Baby Girl. If you want to look it up, ESOKBBYGIRL, all one word. That's the handle on Instagram. I think at this moment, by the time this episode is uploaded, there is no longer a TikTok, so you can ignore that. But yeah, all the main content will now be on Instagram. But if you'd like to follow along or message me any feedback, any questions, I always love to hear from you guys what you want to hear next or things that you have gotten from the episodes. It helps me know what I'm doing right and what I can improve on. So please feel free to give me some feedback. I love the feedback, good and bad. Like, please, if I'm being a shithead, please also let me know, But if you have any recommendations or requests, you can always message me on Instagram. I will also ask questions on Instagram stories now and here and there. I can't even talk today. Y'all, this is every week. I'm always like blah, 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 blah on my episodes. But thank you for being patient with me always. Anyways, I was saying, every now and then on the stories, I will post, like, what would you like to hear? So use those, and I will read all of them and see what I can provide content on. So with that being said, it's time to go, but I love you guys. And remember, it's okay, baby girl. I hope you guys have a great week. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.